Consequences. The inevitable result of the decisions we make or that other people make and tend to affect us. Whether it's Dom's favorite store closing because of the economic fallout of the 5/9 attacks, or F Society having to push up their table because of the Beijing attacks, or, in the case of Elliot, finding a quiet little place in the corner to hide out as you were nearly beaten to death. There are consequences to all of our actions, and that is the unifying theme of this week's episode of Mr. Robot. Episode 2.4, master-slave.aes. Alright, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Mr. Robot. Spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, so we have a really kind of exciting episode this week. Very different. Like I said, consequences are kind of the unifying theme that follows everything out. It's been primarily off of the Beijing attacks, but of course we have Elliot's whole deal with his encounter with Ray that I'm going to hit on kind of at the end of this section of the review. But again, let's start out with the Beijing attacks and the resultant factors. Now, as Dom had pointed out, speaking with her supervisor, this is the Dark Army. It's disguised as a Uyghur attack, which is the Muslim community in China, which gets a lot of unnecessary crap, especially from the Chinese government. But as Dom sees it, that's just a cover. This is really the Dark Army coming and clearing the FBI out there, inhibiting their investigation in with China. And as we reflect back to a couple episodes ago in It 1, and the conversation between White Rose and Fisher, and they're really talking, this really starts to imply where this came from. Fisher and Jaeger are having Zhang, sorry about that. Fisher and Zhang are kind of having a disagreement on the way to move forward. They seem to have fallen into a complicit line in with the 5/9 attacks, of course, because Zhang and the Dark Army are the Chinese side of that. There is this whole triple kind of connection that is going on between F Society working with Dark Army and Zhang in Dark Army working with Fisher to try and get things done. Where specifically they are going with this, it's hard to tell, but it does seem to be focused on the toxic waste plant that was at the center of the Washington Township waste spill, which is what killed Angela's and Elliot's parents there. So again, everything is all connected here, but if we look back, there was a discussion between Fisher and Zhang about timetables, that Fisher wanted to take time, work with Angela, but that was going to be a long period of time. It's going to take time to do that. Zhang, as the master of time, doesn't like it, doesn't have the same patience, is trying to move things in a different direction to move things quicker. What the ultimate point that they're going for, we haven't figured out. It does, again, seem to center around the toxic waste plant, or the waste disposal plant that was a result of the toxic spill for Washington Township. Again, reflects and pulls everything back together. But the results of Zhang deciding as the Dark Army to do this attack on the FBI, it forces the FBI out of China. It locks down their investigation. They are now out. This is going to pull the FBI out of the E-Corp field offices, which pushes the timetable for Darlene and Angela to get their hack done. They've got to get Angela up to that floor and connect all of this equipment in order to get into the FBI's databases and remove any evidence that they have. Their timetable is now pushed up. Also, as a result of that, the negotiations that Fisher has been having with the U.S. government administration is now falling apart. The bailout that he's been looking for E-Corp to try and structure everything back up, try and reinforce the economy, doesn't seem to be able to go forward now. So this one moment, this Beijing attack, has a huge fallout on everybody else's plans. The consequences of that action affect nearly everyone. As we say, with Fisher, he's running in trouble because the bailout that he was looking for E-Corp to try and support his and basically keep his job because the only other alternative is for him to resign. That's not something that he wants, but he's being pushed in that direction. Dom is now forced on a 4-week psych evaluation because being in the middle of a shooting is going to affect you negatively. And then, of course, we have Angela and Darlene and the rest of F Society now have to push up their timetable for the FBI hack. And to be honest, Angela is completely unprepared for it. She knows nothing about hacking. It is too close of a time in order to teach her the basics. So it becomes this big rush and push. And a beautifully handled out kind of 70s themed undercover heist film that was going on there with the assault on the FBI offices. I thought was beautifully handled. Again, great music, great camera work. They did a lot of fun stuff, you know. Always great seeing that kind of heist thing of Darlene calling up the maid and then scanning her card and getting into the room that she needs in order to get a look at the E-Corp office. And then we have Angela going through trying to hack into the system. It was just really well done. The only thing that kind of struck me with all of that is, okay, so when Darlene first told Angela, she said, okay, what I need you to do is go in, put a piece of equipment down on the ground, and walk out, and we're all done. That is not at all what they end up having Angela do. She's got to sneak upstairs, she's got to go into the bathroom to try and hack into the basic parts of the system. Then she's got to go put down another piece of equipment, several other pieces of equipment, which seemed all kind of large. I mean, I know she's got her bag and they're probably hidden in there, but it's not like a small, nondescript piece of technology to hide in. She's got to go and put down a battery pack and then put a connector with that and then take some cables and connect it over into here. That's kind of a big thing to do in the middle of an FBI office. So I thought that was a bit much, but still overall, a well done sequence. Good to see that Angela's a character, again, while outclassed in the whole hacking realm, can handle herself physically and personally. The whole flirty FBI agents interrupting her, really almost exposing her, but she turns it around. You know, he's hitting on her, she doesn't really know how to respond, and then is trying to buy time, just comes right back at him. Oh, I'm sorry, you were giving up too easily. What's the problem with that? Just really perfect for her personality. Even I love that little bit while they're preparing for the hacks as she's trying to concentrate on what she's supposed to do, just out loud repeating her little self-affirmation mantra was hilarious. And then of course Mobley's comment of, you know, you can't talk to yourself while you're doing this. That's not going to do well. Anyway, so I think that was just a really well done sequence. Now, of course, the one thing that we are waiting for at pretty much every moment is for something to go wrong. You know, first we had the flirty FBI agent that we thought was going to either toss her off the floor or discover what she was into. But no, that didn't happen. Then we have the connection and she's finally leaving the office, but no, the Wi-Fi signal has suddenly lost, so she has to go and hack back into the office from her terminal in order to kick this back up. And before she is done with that, then Dom shows up to say hi. Now, yes, she is on administrative leave, but that is not going to stop Dom from further investigating the F Society. So, while, again, very exciting, there was that kind of constant waiting for something to go wrong. And that's probably my only small criticism that I have of the scene, is that it was so expected every time that it happened and then was cured over. You were just waiting for the next step to go. I like that they keep us guessing more than we can sort of presuppose, okay, we're just waiting for something to go wrong here, since that's usually the case of how it is. Also briefly in the realm of consequences, don't ask too many questions of the Dark Army, as Cisco painfully found out. He slid a needle into his finger and broke it off in there. Ah! I think that teaches Cisco his lesson. Do not ask any more questions. And I love that also little moment between him and Angela as Angela catches and recognizes him. So remember, Cisco was the one that gave her the CD way back in season 1 that kind of started that whole end of the 5-9 attack. So she doesn't give it up. Which you got to give that to her. I don't know if that's something that she's going to hold on to herself for a while and maybe use later on, or it's just accepting that this is now part of the world that she has been pulled into. But still, oh man, don't mess with the Dark Army. All right, so with all that out of the way, let's talk about the big Elliot scenes here, which were, again, beautifully done. I mean, there's one thing about Sam Esmail's able to do with this show is constantly invent new things for us to see, constantly tweak our expectations from a visual style, from a presentation style, and that's one of the blessings of dealing with a character like Elliot that has so much going on in his mind, is you can kind of escape into that realm where so many different things can happen. And in this case, it was a recreation of an 80s sitcom, beautifully done. Very disturbing. I love how everybody is in their moment and Elliot's just sort of freaking out in the midst of this, very confused. I love him hearing the laugh track. Just all of those moments I thought were really well done. Insert of Alf, that was perfect, kind of a perfect character to throw into the middle of this well, and again, tied it perfectly in to the 80s. By the way, just as a heads up, actual Budweiser commercial from 1986, the whole Gimme a Light, Bud Light campaign from way back when. I thought that was great to throw that in. And it also, by doing the E-Corp technology, the E-Corp Connect commercials right there, very much in line with the old CompuServe and AOL advertising sequence. That happened a little bit later into the 90s. So we've got sort of a spread between late 80s, early 90s influences in with this scene. But basically what this is down to is we find out this is Mr. Robot saving Elliot from the consequences, well, at least the immediately consequences of his diving into Ray's information. Again, Ray didn't want his stuff being looked at, and of course, Elliot had to and found his whole Silk Road website scary stuff. So the beating that he is getting started at the end of last episode and is in the middle of the beginning of this episode. Really, this whole thing is Mr. Robot pulling Elliot away so he doesn't have to deal with the physical realities of that happening, can then put it behind him. And this is really that stronger connection forming between Mr. Robot and Elliot. How we really get to see that the persona of Mr. Robot does care about Elliot, is not there just to take over, but wants to, again, wants to become a good, solid whole. The two sides of himself can come to a rectification of their differences. And by the end of the episode, we really get that. I love that little moment where Elliot pulls himself, well, he's down in the basement after Ray and his buddy have yanked him out of the hospital room, thrown him down into the basement, and that where just Elliot just forces himself up and just falls onto Mr. Robot, onto his father, in thanks and appreciation, seeing what it is that he has actually done for him. I thought that was a nice, we have finally got to a certain detente between these characters. And it may not last too long, there are still going to be differences, but I just love how that all really kind of came together. Now there was, again, one other little hint that was dropped in the midst of that sequence is we've got, of course, Tyrell tied up in the trunk of the car. But he gets killed. And even Mr. Robot mentions that little moment about that when he drops him back in the car and hits him with the tire iron or the body and the blood sprays on him. So again, is this the subconscious way of letting us know that Tyrell is not off in some mysterious place hiding out, but is possibly just dead and buried? I think that was another little great sequence that was dropped by this. And then we get the final little bit, the flashback moment, where obviously we have Elliot as a child who's gotten into a fight of some sort. and his dad trying to connect in with him, where we find out this is where he lets Elliot know that he lost his job because he's been going to see the doctor because he is sick. But as a result of that, he's going to open up his own shop. And Elliot gets the responsibility, the task, the job of naming it. And of course, we all know what the name becomes. So, and in this sequence, we sort of get a little different view of his father. You know, in season 1, there was really kind of the discussion that his father was kind of a cold, kind of a man that kept things at a distance. Whereas these types of scenes, we're actually seeing there's a connection between father and son. Now, maybe this is, you know, historical rewriting, you know, as we're in his mind, he's sort of, you know, revisionist of what actually happened. Maybe this is what he wanted to happen. Or maybe his interpretation of having a harsher father was the revisionist, and this is more of an actual insight into who the relationship between the two of them are. So I kind of like to see all of that, and I loved actually seeing the difference between when we had Christian Slater doing Mr. Robot in the 80s flashback, the sitcom in his mind. You know, everything was all fake. Even his persona, his presentation, the look on his face, very sitcom-y. Whereas when we get the flashback at the end, it's a much more realistic, much more fatherly image that was going on there. So I love the fact that they're able to put these two types of images together as two different ways that we can see this, and the actors have the ability to really pull this off. That's something just really impressive that continues to be presented by this show, and I'm all about it. So that sort of wraps everything up for this week. Where are we heading into next week? Well, we obviously have Dom about to talk to Angela as she's in the midst of finishing this hack to open up the Wi-Fi. I'm going to see how Dom goes in. Dom is a smart girl, and I don't know if Angela's really prepared to deal with her type of investigation directly in front of her. Then we have Elliot, who's going to be dealing with all of the fallout from Ray. Ray wants something more. As he had said, there is still work to do. What is it that Ray still needs him to do, and how long is he going to keep Elliot alive? Because, I don't know, in that half-beaten state, I am very curious if this is something that he's going to allow Elliot to recover from, or if Elliot is heading down a road of darkness, and he's going to need Mr. Robot to help get him out of it. And then, of course, we get to see the rest of the results of the 5-9 hack falling down on E-Corp here, the Beijing attack. How is Fisher going to get out of that? We got to wait till next week to see it, but you can catch it right here. As always, would appreciate a like if you did enjoy this. You can go ahead and hit a subscribe button I'll have sitting right over here. If you'd like to come back every week, comments in the section below. How are you seeing the fallout of all of these instances? What do you expect to come forward? Go ahead and drop me a line. We'll keep a conversation going on there. Now, just over a week until the return of Fear the Walking Dead, second half of season 2. And that is going to indicate my sort of 1-year anniversary for doing these reviews. So, thank you all so much for being here. Anyway, you can catch me on Twitter. I'm at Darren Jakes. There it is right there. Otherwise, that's going to be it for this week. We will see you all next week. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.